Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today I just want to talk a little bit about another video converter, specifically SCART. So this is a very cheap unit, SCART to HDMI converter I got based on the recommendation off of the Discord server. You can see, I mean, this is actually in surprisingly good solid unit. This is metal, but obviously no brand name. HD video converter. If you can read that. No brand name. Bottom of the box, still nothing useful. And even in the inside, you can see clearly there are no manufacturer's marks in there. But it does look like a quality unit. And we'll give it a quick test. I'm going to pop the lid back on here. Alright. So the box by itself is what does all of the work of converting RGB to HDMI. You just have to get it into the box via a SCART input. But let's see what I got here. So I had to order a SCART cable. And I know the popular solution is to order the switcheroo cable, which I am fine with. If you can't solder your own cables, that's a perfectly valid solution and I highly recommend it. I ordered this cable off of eBay for I think $8. This was about $30, including shipping. The cable I got, I think it was for a Sega Genesis. So it included this 8-pin DIN. Save this for, I don't know, maybe the Atari uses it or something. Something else I get along the way, we'll use that someday. So one thing I wanted to point out also on this $8 SCART cable that I ordered for a Sega Genesis. Some people have noted on the Color Computer Discord that SCART cable in and of itself, you kind of need some components in there to get the signal looking best. And then, I don't know if I can get this to show up, but some capacitors and resistors. I was all excited about that knowledge and looking forward to going ahead and doing that upgrade so I could have good clear video when I fix up the RGB. But there's a problem. One problem is opening a SCART cable. It's not that difficult, come on. Okay, so that just hinges at the top there. This just comes out. So as you can see, the problem is that all these components are already installed for me. This is beautifully made. I mean, it's at least as good as I could have done myself. And it matches exactly what they said to do on the Discord with regard to making a SCART cable. So when you put this back together, I'm going to be careful because it is possible to put it too far back in there and then it doesn't plug in properly, as I discovered. I just wanted to show you that. I don't really need to be inside this connector anymore. I did open it up basically to mark down all the wire colors, which pins they go to, and it all is pretty common sense. Yellow for the composite video, red, white, and black for audio. So you may notice here that I've already got a composite connector on here, and it's literally the only thing I've hooked up. I've got a composite and a ground wire. So I've seen a lot of people thinking maybe they should get a composite to VGA converter. I absolutely do not recommend anybody buy a composite to VGA converter. They always look like crap. And what I'm going to show you is whether or not that even works. Obviously what I have here is my old color computer 1, which I am demonstrating specifically because I have a composite modification in here already. Okay, so what I'm going to do is plug this composite into the composite output, HDMI to HDMI out. Literally nothing else hooked up. Composite, one wire. Let's turn this on, and let's turn this on. Boom. How about that? All right. So I got my test program in there. It says fart. So, yeah. This is pretty much exactly what I'm seeing. This is like fairly tan, almost green. This strip up here is exceptionally green. I would say pistachio green. And it just kind of gets more and more the further it goes down here. Got these edges. I mean, that's pretty normal for a color computer, but anyway, the white is just god awful. I don't know what is in this computer making this so bad. Maybe it's bad capacitors, whatever. So let's just switch over to the HDMI and see how that composite to HDMI does. Input. Yeah. Pretty much exactly the same. It's giving me exactly what I put out from composite. Maybe slightly cleaner. I still have a little bit of jail bars here. At least the artifact colors are nice and red and blue, as they should be. The white is very, very green. And it's a little bit annoying. So now, I guess the practical upshot of all this is that a composite to HDMI or composite to VGA converter is still just that. I mean, it's great for the colors, but you're still not going to be able to do 80 column text with it. It's just not going to happen. Composite isn't going to do it. But for artifact colors, it's great. And I do like the SCART to HDMI solution for that, because it allows a composite input as well as an RGB input, just like an old, say, 1084 monitor. You can choose which one you want. So, there we go. So, in theory, this should be done. Alright, so in conclusion, I guess I want to show you, obviously the thing is working beautifully in RGB here. You can see I've got the composite plugged in. Now, what you saw before was the composite coming out of my CoCo3 composite mod. Reset again. And that is composite coming out of the HDMI via SCART. And just to show you that that's not the box doing it, I'll unplug this, plug in the actual composite cable. We'll go input, left, enter. Yep. Might even be worse. Colors look a lot better in the camera than they do on the screen. Well, they don't look bad on the screen, but the cyan looks a lot greener to my eye than it does in the viewfinder. Not sure how the final video will look, but overall the colors look pretty good in the video. I guess on the screen it's not too bad. So I'm going to switch this. Oh, because I'm not on SCART. Menu. No, not menu. Input. HDMI 2. No signal. Why would you not have signal? Oh, it has no signal because I unplugged the freaking composite, which is where it gets sync. There we go. Hit M to toggle the monitor. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this. Anyway, so the other thing I didn't really show you in the video was the RGB versus composite switch, which, again, I did show you the pin 10 wire, but I'm not actually using pin 10 out of the CoCo to do it. I just built it into the box itself. I literally just used some hot melt glue to put a push on push off switch mounted on top of the HDMI input, and I can just push that button to switch it here. So the RGB gets its sync off of the composite signal, and if you take away that 5 volts from the pin 10 output from the CoCo, and you can just put the switch inside the CoCo, send 5 volts out pin 10, that'll work as well. You can have a switch in here and a switch in there, and it's all fine. That's how the switcheroo cable does it. It's just built into the cable and requires an external power supply. So just real quick, I'll actually show you that the switch I put on this. So you can see the little switch that I put in there. I drilled a precision hole in the front of the case. Just push button switch, push on, push off, and it literally connects 5 volts from the power supply to pin 8 of the SCART connector to switch to RGB mode. And you turn it off, and that goes back to composite. Now, as far as quality, this is good quality. It's not the best VGA quality or HDMI quality I've seen out of the color computer specifically. Okay, get in there, thank you. So I'm sure some of you are wondering, I showed you the hard way. What's the easy way? Is there an easy way? Well, yeah. Basically, I've made several video cables for the CoCo3 now. The easy way is just to take an existing ribbon connector, and you literally solder wire to wire. Use a little heat shrink, individually heat shrink into each wire inside that, and then slide the bigger heat shrink over the whole bundle, and it's fine. And you'll see I have this marked red here, red for pin 1. The way to remember, on the CoCo, there's no key on the connector. Even though this is a keyed connector, there's no key on the socket in there. So the red on the connector goes to the red on the keyboard on the CoCo3. So red to the right. So this one is actually a VGA cord, and it does include the audio in the signal. So that's one. I've got another one here. You can see a little clearer the individual wires. This cord actually goes to a DIN 6 connector. This is the same as our joystick connectors, but this is the RGB input socket for the Commodore 1084. I have 2 Commodore 1084s, and I have made 2 of these cables that plug into them. The other one here, the other one that I've made here is for the GBS control, and this uses the standard connector that comes with it, the RGBS plug that comes with the board. And again, I just took an existing PC cable, and even if you don't have PC cable, you can find these connectors and just get some ribbon cable and crimp it on there. They're pretty easy when you're crimping a ribbon cable. It's a pain in the ass to connect individual wires to one of these and make sure they line up right. I have a little heat shrink sleeve on here that I've not shrunk up because this cable is probably not in its final form, but you can just push that up to hide the ugly solders. Pretty straightforward job actually, and easiest of all, if you only have a color computer 1 or 2 and you just want the composite, you can literally, and I showed this in my video, you can run the composite wire all by itself to the yellow and purple wire in here in the SCART connector, and you could literally just hand twist those and put some electrical tape on them, and you'd have a perfectly fine composite to HDMI converter. But again, I'll just show you, this is the finished product. It's kind of a nice cable actually, not too stiff on the cabling. And at this end, got your CoCo3 RGB connector with a little tail for the composite input, which provides sync. Okay, well, I think that covers it for the RGB to SCART cabling, or the color computer to SCART in general. I hope this information is useful to some of you. If you've been thinking a SCART converter might be a good option for you, it probably is. I will say that the video quality is not as good as the GBS control. The only advantage that it has over the basic GBS 8200 is that the GBS has no composite input, no artifact support at all. But that's really not that big of a trade-off in my mind. Most monitors will have either a composite RGB switch or separate inputs like this one does, HDMI, VGA, even RF. Speaking of RF, the RF is actually far better than the composite output on this CoCo3. The Cayenne is still pretty green, but at least the text is somewhat clear. So this is straight out the RF input. Then we'll compare this to the composite. Yeah, that's spectacular. Alright, well, that should do it for this video. I've got some work to do to get ready for the fest, so I will see you guys next time. Cheers.